Well, hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hi there.
I'm Bob.
I'm Susan.
Yes, and welcome to the Community Forum number 9. Today, we're going to be talking about the long haul. Owning a business is a marathon, not a sprint. And today, we're going to sort of, explore. And we're looking for your questions and your ideas about what it's going to be like for you in the long haul. This morning in the podcast, I talked about this concept from Scott Belsky, that this idea of a messy middle, this place where you're still
figuring it out.
And that's what we want to hear from you about today. What do you plan on doing? What do you plan on becoming? How do you think business will be different 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now? That's what a community forum is all about. This is your chance to ask questions.
Give us your best ideas. Tell us what you're doing that's working. Tell us what you're doing that's not working, and see if we can help you tweak it and figure it out.
That's right, yes.
All of those great things. We've got a lot of great people on the call already. We've got Sarah, Cherie, Chris Willis, one of our certified coaches is on.
I see Kathy Campbell, another one of our certified coaches, and Gilbert. So our coaches are not all here, of course.
We've
but
got Ginger and Betsy, so
right.
we're happy to have you guys on the forum today.
Absolutely. I see Aubrey Tell has come on, and
Marie Foley from Revolutionary Concord in Massachusetts.
Yes,
hi, Marie.
That's great.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, we're so happy that you're all staying with us through this whole thing. We're doing everything we can to help you think about what's going on here right now. So, do we want to say hello to anybody else? Do we want to get right to questions that people have asked?
Let's get to some questions.
Okay, so please, if you have let's talk about a couple things. If you have any questions, please put them, in the comments. If you have things that are working for you now, please put them in the comments. If you have ideas or perspectives about what you think things are going to look like in the future, please put them in the comments now. If you don't give us your questions and your feedback, Susan and I are going to just sort of ramble at you for an hour.
You don't want us to ramble.
You especially don't want me to ramble. So, good, wonderful. All right.
We have a great question from Susan Glenn Wallace.
Okay. Hello, Susan.
Susan, she emailed this question in earlier. I'm not sure if she's able to make it on the forum, but hopefully she's going to come back and watch it. Susan's got a yarn and stitchery store in Bay City, Michigan.
Yep.
About 3 hours away from us.
Yep.
And her question's a great one. She says, I'm wondering what's going to happen to my over-the-top sales online when my captive audience is allowed to go out and about. So what's going to happen to her online sales?
And this is a perfect question for today's forum. And so would you like me to
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So here's what I think is going to happen in the future is when things open up, there's going to be a lot more people that are going to come in. And so, Susan, to your question,
she's here.
So,
she's
okay.
Here. Yeah.
So, by the way, so Susan has a brick and mortar store, but her sales have been up with no employees since she's been closed because we have shelter in place here in Michigan. And what Susan's been doing is Facebook Lives. So she's been doing classes, she's been selling on Facebook Live, and she's actually up. Which, that is sort of the background to this question. But what I think is going to happen is that it's going to be a combination of both. I think, Susan, you are much better positioned for big success in the future than you were before the pandemic. And here's what I mean. I believe that the future is what we're calling omni-experiential. That
absolutely
pre-pandemic, what most brick and mortar retailers did was they marketed their business aggressively to get people into the store, and then they sold them in the store. There might have been a little bit of e-commerce, there might have been a little bit of social selling, but that was basically the big business model. Get them in the store and sell them some stuff. That's the simple version, of course. Now, customers want to experience your store in different ways, in experiential ways. So some of your people are going to stay with you and buy from you online. They're going to continue to participate in your Facebook Lives, assuming that you still do it. Some of your customers are going to want to come into the store. So when we talk about experiential, Susan, what we mean is that you're going to retain a good portion of your online sales, because that's how some of your customers are going to want to shop, but you're also going to start to rebuild your in-store business, because that's how some of your customers are going to want to shop. But Susan, here's my official prediction for you, is that most of your customers are going to want to do both.
Exactly.
They're going to watch your Facebook Lives. You have taught them to appreciate the fact that they don't have to get into their car and come into your store to buy. But they're also going to be able to appreciate the fact that they can come into your store and feel the, what do you call it, yarn?
Yarn, of course you call it yarn.
Yeah. And look and feel your skeins. Skeins. But you see what I'm saying? And I think that's what's going to...
Sorry, Susan.
Sorry, Susan. But you see, I really think that's what is going to... When I look at what I think is going to be the model for the strongest retailers post-pandemic isn't really the right term anymore. In the future, it's that you're going to give your customers... you're going to let your customers shop the way that they want to shop. You're going to let your customers receive the goods the way that they want to receive them, whether it's in-store or delivery or curbside pickup.
I think curbside is here to stay for people.
It is absolutely here to stay. So really, it is truly becoming the age of getting your customers what they want in the way that they want it. And so, Susan, for you, I think you're going to see real growth when this is done, assuming you keep doing your Facebook Lives. Maybe not with the intensity that you have in the past, maybe not with the frequency, but what you've done is you've created a whole group of people who love watching you live, and they're going to continue to love watching you live. And so that's what my official prediction is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I speak to something more about that also?
Could I stop you if I wanted to? No, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to feel like I'm rambling, like I'm not giving you an opportunity to talk. So we've talked about this several times in the podcast, this idea of what your team is going to look like as the world opens up, as you start to have more in-store traffic. And that is that, I think foot traffic for most businesses, in-store foot traffic for most brick and mortar independent retailers for the foreseeable future is going to be down. People don't want, not all people, but a lot of people don't want to come in the store. Even if you have really great safety procedures in place, and even if you've communicated it really well. So
I think that the thing is it's not that they're going to stop shopping, and they're not going to stop shopping with you, but they're going to limit the number of times they're shopping, right?
They're not
and they're going to try to limit their time in store.
Yeah.
This is what we think.
This whole, going back to Susan, going in and feeling the yarn and, just sort of being in your store. A knitter wants to be in a knitting store because it fills them up, right? But I think that one of the things we're going to see is that your retail accountability blueprint, your organizational chart, is going to look a lot different. So, Susan, you may have been the person who set up the Facebook Live and set the lighting and, did all the packing of the orders and that sort of thing. And what your team may look like in the future is you'll have less people who work on the floor, but part of your team may be a media crew. somebody who sets up your Facebook Live for you, so all you do is show up and do that work. Joe and Sam, our sons, Negen Brothers Media, they set things up. Susan and I just walk downstairs and
or hopefully someday we'll be walking from our offices.
Yeah,
but
into
right
our
now,
studio. But that whole idea of your team is going to look different, and your team needs to represent that different look. So when you start thinking about bringing people back on, or when you think about what your team looks like in the future, don't think in terms of, I need more salespeople, and then maybe one of them will help me with my live media, my live social media. Think, I need less salespeople, and I need somebody who knows how to do this live social media, because then the quality will be better, and it will be a lot easier than if you take your knitter who you happen to hire as a sales associate and say, by the way, can you help me with my live social media?
Exactly. Yeah. Good. All right. Tons and tons of great questions here. Are you ready for the next one?
Sure.
All right. This is from Rachel.
Okay. Hi, Rachel.
Rachel's a Main Street director.
All right.
So she's not a retailer. But her question is about how can people, business owners, retailers, think outside of their current merchandise mix, especially if their merchandise mix is like tricky for the future, like formal wear, like people aren't going to be going to big gala events or proms or maybe even huge weddings or things like that for the foreseeable future. So, how does somebody like that, or how do any of us, how are we gonna think about adjusting and expanding strategically our merchandise mix so that we can move into, it's about people are wanting different things, right? So,
right. So we have a concept that called adjacencies, and there's two parts to this answer. And the first is the idea of adjacency. So think of your merchandise, your current merchandise mix fitting into this box. This is a box. Think of that as a box. Adjacent means to be next to. So one of the questions to ask yourself is, what is similar enough to what's in this box, what would go right around here, that still speaks to your customers, but is outside of what you sell right now? And I'll share a quick story. So a perfect example of adjacency is what happened with me at the Mackinac Kite Company. In the beginning, I opened a kite store, and I was a pure play kite store. I sold kites. In fact, I was very proud of the fact that I didn't sell anything but kites. We were a kite store. And then one day that I realized
that you needed to eat.
Yeah, I was thinking more buy beer. Yeah,
buy some beer.
But one day I realized that I wasn't really selling kites. I was selling fun. And so when I realized I was selling fun, that took this box, which was kites, our merchandise mix was kites, and allowed us to go all the way, to really expand our mix, yet sell to the same customer base. So the question is, what can I sell to my customers that still is close enough that I am staying sort of, for lack of a better term, true to who I am? So that's one of the challenges. The second part of this question is...
sorry, yawning.
Mark Weiss, I had never heard it called this before, but I was on a community forum like this with Mark Weiss, who is the CEO and owner of Management One, and he calls it a scattered mix, meaning some people just need to start selling other stuff. You're seeing people who are in the clothing business selling toilet paper, right?
Well, talk about JWs.
Yeah, so we have a wine store here in town, And now, fortunately, Chris, the owner, also owns a restaurant right next door. But in order to become an essential business, she needed to sell food. So she sells toilet paper, she sells eggs, she sells steaks, she sells paper towels. So she sells the things that she
at her wine store.
At her wine store. And, she did it sort of out of necessity, but at the end of the day, it allowed, she's hustling. If you're paying attention, if you've been watching the podcasts or listening to our podcasts, she's hustling this whole idea of, hey, I need to sell something. If people want it, I'm going to try to bring it in for them.
Sure.
So that's what we call a scattered mix. And, I prefer adjacency to a scattered mix.
Yeah.
I don't think a scattered mix is sustainable, whereas when you build adjacencies, there are.
It's super tricky to run a scattered mix for a long time without overbuying. And there's the tricky part, and there's the dangerous step. Like when you start to expand your mix, as you start to offer different things that your customers do want now that, or want more of now that they wanted less of, you need to be careful not to buy as much in those areas then that they're not buying as much in.
Right. Or you become not irrelevant to your original brand. But in Mackinac City, there was an Alaskan store. And it was a great store. In fact, several people, yes, it was a great store. And then, but they didn't have quite enough business as an Alaskan store. So one of the two owners, their dad told them, hey, NASCAR is hot right now. So their store became half NASCAR, half Alaska, and then it really became nothing anymore.
And then they went up.
They left, but they took their niche and they went from here to there,
all the way over there,
and it didn't work. And the third thing I think that you're going to find is some people are going to just pivot. There are some industries, when you talk about formal wear. There are some. It's going to be super tricky. But here's what I know: entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs, retailers are retailers. So there are going to be some people who say, "Wait a second! I was in this vertical, I was in this industry, I was in this niche. This niche isn't working anymore, but I've got space, I've got skills." I've got insights into my community, and therefore I'm going to take my blank store and turn it into a other kind of store. So I do think you're going to find people who are going to do almost complete pivots because the industry that they're in is sort of no longer works. We've seen this happen again and again and again in retail. Premium cigars. There were, for a while, it was so hot. There were so many premium cigar stores, and there still are some really good premium cigar stores. But, when the craze died down, the sheer quantity of stores went away. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. We're in this messy middle as a community of independent retailers, and you're going to see lots and lots of changes. So that is a great question. Thank you for asking.
I think what most people are going to be doing is just making a slight shift. Like, I do think there's going to be people that pivot, but like if you had a high-end women's clothing store that was really geared towards ladies going to work, corporate people, corporate women, you'll probably still have those things, but you might also have a lot more of the lounge.
Right.
As people are still going to be working from home at least part of the time. So
if you sell goods, if you're in bridal or formal wear, things like that, I think you're going to see a lot more, to your point, lounge clothing. You're no longer in the sell one thing to one person for one event. You're now in the business of selling your customers things that they can use again and again.
Yeah, that's great. So many great questions here. This is one from Karen. She says, we're opening on Friday with limited hours.
Okay. Hi, Karen.
Coming up, we're taking all of the CDC precautions, including adding plexiglass, wearing masks, social distancing, etc. How do you handle customers who don't want to comply with the precautions that we're taking?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, of course.
This is so hard. In Michigan, somebody was killed for this very reason, right? And so the first thing I want to say to you is, please don't expect your employees to be the enforcers. You know, it's unfair to ask them to kick somebody out or something like that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that I agree with you, because owners aren't going to be around every single hour that the store is open.
Right.
I think it's more important that you teach your employees.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You teach them what to do, and how. But more importantly, you script it, and you do role plays, because it's probably going to happen, and and so what to do. So if somebody comes in and they refuse to leave, whether it's call the police, but
what to do.
I do think it's unfair to say you're responsible for making sure that person leaves.
They need to be. They need to have a script that they should follow. They should have a plan. You should, together with your team, create a plan. Okay, if somebody comes in the store and they're not wearing a mask, first you ask them to wear a mask. And if they don't have a mask, then you give them a disposable mask. And if they refuse to wear the mask, you ask them to wait outside, and you'll do the shopping for them, and you'll bring it out to them. And if they refuse to do that, what's your escalating steps for the people? I was in a bakery recently buying cupcakes. So it was for my birthday. I was buying cupcakes for myself, and I was chatting with the gal who was behind the counter. And we were wearing masks, and I was wearing mine. She was wearing her, and I said, "Thank you for wearing masks. We appreciate that." And she said that earlier that day she'd had a big guy come into the bakery, and he refused. And she went through their policy, and eventually had to call the police.
Right.
But
right.
they had a process.
They had a process. Yes.
They had developed this process. So. Whereas I was at the grocery store last weekend, and there were tons of people not following the rules.
Right.
And the grocery store wasn't doing anything about it. And maybe that's your approach too. It could be that you're just fine with, we're going to set out these guidelines and then not enforce them. That's okay too, if that's your choice. But you need to give your team the process.
Yes, but that's what I was saying. I don't think it's fair to expect them to make it up on their own on the fly.
Right.
So,
of course.
But so I'll also share something that Morgan Harris shared on Whizbang Retailers. And Morgan is a Platinum Mastermind group member and a coach. And she's in Oklahoma City. And apparently the anti-mask, anti-safety sentiment is very, very strong in Oklahoma City. And she's got a baby store. So, she's very, very concerned about the safety of her customers. So they're able to open now, and what she's doing is shopping by appointment only. She's got it phased out. I think this is what's important. She's learning on the fly, and she's starting with ultra caution. So they can only shop by appointment, and there's a $20 appointment fee. So what she's trying to do is...
She's on, by the way.
Oh, hi, Morgan. She's trying to get rid of the look-de-loos, right?
Looky-loos. Looky-loos. We had this fight last week, I believe.
She's looking to get rid of the look-de-loos.
Looky-loos.
And so, she's charging $20 to come in and shop. The $20 is applied to the purchase.
Yeah. So it's free.
So it's free, but it discourages, those casual shoppers. And maybe she can reply to it more that she's here. But when people come in, the first thing they do is go and wash their hands. So there's this whole safety cleanliness protocol built around it. But the thing that I liked that she shared was, number one, by only shopping by appointment, she was able to she's able to sort of set the expectations when they set the appointment.
Sure.
Yes, you can't shop in here if you're not wearing a mask. And they do have the front door closed so people can't come in. So the thing that I appreciated about what Morgan did, and this speaks to what Susan was talking about, is it is really important that you're very thoughtful about what you want to have happen and what could happen, and then build the responses into the process.
Yeah, and it is tough. So everybody's replying here. Such a tough question. Health-related questions. Everybody's different. Everybody has different, different ways that they're reacting to this. Stephanie said it's so hard because we want people to be safe in our store, but we don't want to lose the sale either. So it's all really tricky. I think the idea of having this script, having this step-by-step plan, work on your team to create the plan so that they're safe.
Absolutely.
That they feel safe. Is really
and this is a great place for this thing that we call ADD. And ADD stands for ask, discuss, and decide. And it's a way for you to get your team members involved in the building of the plan. Ask them, what should our protocol be? Discuss it together and decide together. If you're taking notes, write this down. Let them help you plan the fight, and they won't fight the plan. If you come up with it together, they're much more likely to buy into it. And ADD is a model that works with all of your problems and opportunities. Basically, it turns your team into a little mini mastermind for you.
Okay.
Great question, though. Thank you.
Really, really great question. Let's see here. So I love this question from Kristen. She says she's got a pop culture store. We sell an epic experience.
All right, love that.
Complete with large sets that we build, a vintage arcade. How can we still give them an experience that competes with our big box neighbors, even though we won't be allowed to reopen or offer curbside for at least another month? Beyond what we've been doing, Facebook Lives, store tours, updates, etc. So I'm going to start, and then you
sure,
can
of course,
jump in, because I think this question gets at really.
Are you cold?
No, but I'm wearing a little.
How do you like this? We're in pastels today. Okay, I'm sorry.
We're trying to pretend
I'm just
like
sitting here
it's
trying
spring.
not to go like this. Anyway, I apologize. Go ahead, honey.
I think this question gets at a really essential thing that we're all going to have to try to figure out, and that is, how do we take all the little touches, all the little things, all the little experiences that made your store amazing, made your store better than Walmart, better than Best Buy, better than what, I don't know, whatever.
Kohl's,
thank you. Whatever. Big department stores, better than Macy's, whatever. What is it? I mean, there are many things that Kristen, you talked about like huge sets and a video and an arcade, a vintage arcade setup. How do you? So you obviously can't do that in the same way. But what we're all going to have to try to think about is, how are we going to translate? So what was it about the vintage arcade that they loved? I mean, obviously they loved the experience of playing the games or whatever. But is it that you took them back in time to their youth? Do they love gaming? What is it about the vintage arcade that they loved, and how can you then translate that experience? How can you adapt that deeper benefit that they're getting and translate that into all the other things that you're doing? It's tricky.
I think I totally agree with what you said. totally agree with what you're saying. But what she's asking is, all the big box stores have these advantages that she doesn't have, and she's doing all of these things.
Sure.
And at some level, Kristen, you just have to wait it out. It sounds like, it sounds like all of the things that you're doing are the right things. And I want to encourage you to keep doing them. And I know it's frustrating that you can't sell at all right now. But here's what I want to say to you, and I mean this with the most sincerity. All of the things that you are doing right now are adding up. And they're adding to, when we teach marketing, we talk about this thing, the emotional bank account. Mm-hmm. So people, you're building demand for what you are and what you sell. To Susan's point, the experience you get. And although I wish I had some great idea for you, I don't see I don't see an e-commerce experience on there.
Yeah.
But at some level, you just have to keep doing what you're doing and build that, and that demand is going to be pent up. And the minute that they let you in, they let people in, you're probably going to have to do by appointment only. But, this is just one of those tricky things that we don't really have the answer for. But now, I didn't see e-commerce on there. And one of the things that I really want to share with you is that I have seen this so much during this pandemic. People building websites on a dime.
Sure.
People who had terrible e-commerce websites all of a sudden doing tremendous volume off of their websites. So, Kristen, if you don't have a website right now, maybe that's where you need to put some of your energy, because, I even hate to say this, but this could go like this. We could open up just to be shut back down, and this could go on for a long time, and there could be another pandemic in the future. So one of the things that's happening right now...
Don't even say that, Bob.
I know, oh God. But really, think about what's happening right now. Think about the things that you are learning, not just how to do business, but internally. You are developing a resilience that is going to serve you very, very well in the future. And you're also building business systems that could serve you very, very well in the future. One of our Platinum Mastermind Group alumni had 2 stores in a barely an e-commerce presence. Well, she built up her website, closed one of her stores, and she feels like she's really positioned for a strong future because of that shift.
Yeah. I'm going to go back again. I agree with you as well, but I'm going to go back again and challenge each of you to think about, what are the experiences that make your store special, and how do you translate that? So like delivery is one of the things you say. All right, so if we take Vintage Arcade, which is in your store, and delivery, it seems like there's nothing that is relatable. But like if the idea of the Vintage Arcade, and what they love about the Vintage Arcade is going back to those times when they were, that idea of being a kid. Well, what's the candy that you used to eat at the arcade? Was it Bazooka bubblegum and Cracker Jacks, or what did you eat when you were a kid?
Baby Ruths. No.
No,
Well, what was the little butterscotch with Mary Jane's?
Mary Jane's.
Vintage
candy. So maybe your experience
you
translation.
Put me on the spot,
I know.
honey.
Sorry, candy. I thought you'd be able to think of that one. That was pretty easy. We had pixie sticks, and I don't know, all those little things. Maybe
Pixie sticks.
Yes. Yeah. And so maybe the translation. I'm just making this up, right? But maybe the translation is in each delivery is a little teeny. With some kind of a cute old-fashioned tag that says, take a piece of whatever your store name is home with you, and that's what I want you to think about. Those are Walmart can't do that. They're never going to do that. Kohl's is never going to do that. Best Buy's never going to do that. It's the reason that they loved your store before. It's not the same, but how do you translate it? How do you make that? How do you take those little shifts, the things that they loved about your store, and reinvent them in the same way that we're reinventing the way we're selling, the same way that we're reinventing the way that we're delivering, the same way that we're reinventing, all of these things, we're going to have to reinvent the experience, the customer experience that made us special. So.
And I did a podcast on that. I was looking in my notes, but I don't have a number on it. But I did a podcast, and if I don't know which one it was, never mind. But that's right.
Kristen says she's been putting 60 hours a week into creating her e-commerce.
There you go, Kristen. That's what I'm talking about, the hustle. And at Whizbang Training, we're doing the same thing. It's like hustle. And I just want to share, not share, but commiserate together. The hustle is hard. This is our 9th community forum. So the hustle is work, and it will make you tired. Putting 60 hours a week into a website while you're doing your Facebook Lives and while you're doing your deliveries and while you're doing these things, let's just, all look at each other and go, this shit is hard. But guess what? It all matters. The work you're doing now, the things you're doing now, the lessons you're learning now, they all matter. They will serve you in the future. They will serve you in the future. You are becoming more resilient. It's kind of like what I talked about in this morning's podcast. So I'm so glad that you're doing that. And Kristen, it's all going to be good. It's all going to be good someday.
Yep. Good
all
stuff.
Right. Okay. Here's my little rant.
Yeah, that's good. I thought that was a great question. Anyway, and it's something that I've been thinking a lot about. The experience. How do we adapt the experience that made us special into these totally new formats? So.
But that's, and I'm going to keep coming back to that whole concept because I'd like to, I'd like you to think about your business that way in the future. Omni-experiential. So it's no longer about just driving people into the store. It's about letting them interact with you the way that they want to interact with you by being there in the media, in the forums, in the way that they want you to be there. So I love what you're doing.
Jean says she's seen in other groups some people are worried about being sued if someone traces the germ back to your store. Do you see that being an issue? You want me to take it?
No, I'll take it.
All right.
You got better things to worry about.
Lots.
So there's speculation about everything. And when you let yourself go down a rabbit hole in a pandemic, it will take you all the way down. So you've got things to worry about, and you've got things that will take care of themselves when they take care of themselves. And being sued, if that becomes your huge concern, you should probably close your store. If that worries you too much, you're not cut out to doing business in the near future.
Yeah. Clearly you need to be taking precautions, following all your state and CDC guidelines. If you're not doing that, you leave yourself open for a hassle. But if you're doing that, there's no 100% guarantee about this thing anywhere, anytime, with anybody.
Right.
And no, I wouldn't even give it a thought.
So I'll use a metaphor. You're on a sailing trip, and you're out in the ocean, and you're in the middle of a storm, and your mast breaks, and the waves are crashing over the bow of your boat, and somebody comes and goes, the mirror in the bathroom is dirty, right? Of all the things to worry about, it's just not on. You got better things to worry about. You got better things to think about. If you're going to spend your time doing something, I don't know, have a glass of wine.
So I have a question for you guys, and I'd love for you to answer in the comments if you would. Bob and I were just had a phone call with a guy who is a specialist in cleaning and disinfecting the procedures. They have training available for your people, stuff like that. Is that something that's interesting to you? Like, would you like to hear directly from an expert on that kind of stuff? Rather than just, random people. Like, is that something that's interesting to you? hearing what they're saying. I personally was kind of fascinated when I talked to him about some of the stuff that he said that I didn't know about. So just wondered if that's something that's interesting to you. We also have, just so happens that our downstairs neighbor at Whiz Bang Training sells those UV light modules that you can use to clean your money and other parts of your store. So we have two really great resources. Like I said, I like getting facts directly from the people who that's what they do, that they're experts. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know, because I think we could set up some interesting interviews with those folks.
The thing that I thought was
if
interesting.
If you're interested.
The thing that I thought was interesting about what they do, and it kind of speaks to that question about can people sue you, is they have testing built into their training system.
Yeah.
So if you had your employees go through the training and showed that they passed the test, I think that would make for a stronger case if anybody came back and tried to sue you.
Linda says that their company's asking for them to become certified.
Right.
And they actually have this. I'm going to set this up for you guys. I'm going to try to maybe set it up for Thursday. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Go Susan.
So, really interesting. Okay, great. I'm glad to know that this is something you guys are interested in. So, we'll definitely set that up for you, and we'll let you know more about that probably tomorrow. Great.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Excellent. Okay, back to questions. Sorry, that was my question to you. So now back to your questions for us. So this is, Shanette says, in terms of meeting shoppers where they are at home, for many people, for now at least, are folks finding as much success and engagement with product promo videos on any other platforms besides Facebook? For example, Instagram. And I'm going to extend her question a little bit.
Okay.
And just talk about what are some other ways that we can meet shoppers where they are now.
Right.
At home.
Right.
And do direct selling of products.
Okay, so so I can't speak to Instagram success stories.
Well, I can talk a little bit about it.
Okay, why don't you do that, and then I'll talk about other ways to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
So I do know a couple of stores that have had really good success doing Instagram Live, but I will say that the few handful of people that I know that have had success doing Instagram Lives have a really intense, pre-existing, ravenously rabid followers on their Instagram account, right? This is not something that they've just built in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
These are folks that were like superstars on Instagram to start with. They already had trained all of their customers to be following them all the time, like every hour of the day on Instagram.
They're in an industry that lends itself to Instagram too.
There are multiple actually people who are doing it. But so they've had success with it. Yes. I also know people who have just kind of, plodding along little Instagram account, and those people have tried Instagram Live and had very little success. Right. So I think it depends on where your followers are expecting you to be. And if they're expecting you to be on Facebook, that's where you go.
Right.
So that's just Instagram versus Facebook. And then you want to talk about some other ideas?
Yeah, sure. So before that, we are really upping our Instagram game. And if you're not following us on Instagram, how's that for a perfect segue? I'd love to.
Nice.
Love to have you follow us. It's Whiz Bang Training, on Instagram and
at Whiz Bang Training.
At Whiz Bang Training. So, other ways to engage your customers. I think that clienteling is one of the most powerful tools. Especially if you have a product that's got a longer buying cycle. If you're a convenience store and you have people, filtering in all the time, it's not as valuable. But if you sell higher ticket goods, or if you have merchandise that lends itself to a longer buying cycle, clienteling is something that should be part of the way that you think about the future of your business. Now, I'm going to give the quick tour of clienteling, but if you want to know more, go to whizbangtraining.com/coronavirus. It's our binge page.
Aubrey, can you put that link in the comment
And
feed?
you can go and see an interview that I did with Maureen Doran. And Maureen owns 3 high-end luxury brand women's wear stores in the Philadelphia area. And she's really, really, really dialed it in. And a couple of people we know who, you know, one of them has 6 music stores and somebody has several tax stores, you know, so, and they're going, okay, this is part of my future. And I'm suggesting for most of you, clienteling could be an important part of your future too. Clienteling is when you match up your customer base to your employees, so that your top customers are assigned to somebody on your team. And that person on your team is responsible for maintaining and enhancing the relationship. Now, what Maureen did, she had an off-site meeting with all of her employees from all 3 stores, and they went through their entire customer database and assigned every single customer to one of her stylists, her associates. And that person is responsible for learning about that. Oh, Susan, you love pink? Something beautiful. I'm Susan's stylist. Something beautiful comes in pink. Oh, hey, this is great. Susan, I just got in some great pink stuff. How's that for a technical women's clothing term?
Some pink
but
stuff.
But you see what I'm saying? So, and you don't have to take it. And then she's built a whole system around it. She's built a whole system of accountability. She's built a whole system of communication. And you can learn a lot more. I think the interview is 40 minutes long. But especially if you sell higher end merchandise, clienteling is going to become an important part of the way that you interact, to your question.
Can you, Kathy Kemble says, in clienteling in conjunction with Bomb videos. Can you talk about that?
Yes, okay. So Bomb videos are a service, an email service that allow you to actually send video emails. And it's super simple to use. And, you know, so basically when I send a Bomb video, I open up my email window, I type in who it's going to, and I push a button, and sure enough, the camera comes up, and I say, "Hi, Joe, it's Bob Negen from Whiz Bang Retail Training," and I talk about whatever I want to talk about. Okay. I can tell you, so Bomb, I don't know, I think it costs us $29 a month.
Something like that.
I know of at least 3 Platinum Mastermind Group members who were sold, isn't the right word, but you know, that Bomb video really engaged them in a way that they hadn't been engaged with when I was just sending emails. So, you know, here's what I'm going to encourage you to do to get you to at least get your toes wet. Pick your top 25 customers and say, and assign them to people on your team, or choose to do it yourself, and then just learn how to reach out. Learn how to stay in communication. Build the relationship. You don't have to call them to sell them. You can just call them to see how they're doing. But build the relationship so that you engender loyalty. In one of the podcasts, I talked about this whole idea of right now, your job is to lock your customers down. You don't want them to go anywhere else. If you're in the pet business, you don't want people buying their pet food at the grocery store. And all of these little things that you do to engage your customers, especially if you're meeting them where they are, will help you lock that customer down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Bomb for doing that, because you can show the product. Hey, look at this cool new product that we got in that I think you're totally going to love. You know, it's great. And then they can read that email at their convenience and on their time frame. Meet them where they are. So I think that's great. Really good and fun question. Short question.
Short.
From Karen. We have a great website. Now what? Which I think is a great question.
Well, go ahead.
I'm going to
I'll
take
it if you
I'll
don't
start.
mind.
So I think it's a great question because if you guys remember back to when you very, 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 very first opened your store, you may have had this very similar question. I just built my store. My doors are open.
Build it and they will come.
If you build
it's
it,
the
they
field
will...
of dreams syndrome.
Right?
Yeah.
Now what? Right? Well, the answer for your website is exactly the same as it is for your store. You have to do the marketing. You have to do the work to drive the traffic. It's not foot traffic; it's visitor traffic, but it's the same kind of work. One of the very first things I would do is I would start making sure that you're doing a lot of email marketing. Like, it might feel old-fashioned or whatever, but I'm telling you, it is still the most effective marketing tool that we have and that you have. Do lots of email marketing, driving people back to your super great website.
Here's something else you can do. You can do essentially, you can do a scavenger hunt.
Scavenger hunt on the website's a great idea.
So you could put words like when we did tip number 777, we buried sevens all throughout our website, and people found
they're called Easter eggs.
Easter eggs,
yeah.
And if people found enough sevens, they were entered into a contest, into a drawing, and then we had a nice prize. So you can do that. One of the things that you might, if you do all the things that we're talking about here, live social media, all of those things, you just have to keep talking about it. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, and I'm going to, Karen, I don't know what your website looks like, and I'm sure, clearly you're proud of it. That's great. But one of the mistakes that I see people make is that they focus on design and not as much on community. So if your website, what I really hope all of you have on your website is not just product offerings, but really, really that your website communicates who you are and provides your customers with great content, not just product offerings. So for instance, if I was a bike shop, I would have a whole section in my website about local bike trails. I would have a whole section on my website with information that people would find helpful. The things that you do on Facebook Live are the things that you can put onto your website. It's called repurposing content. We are repurposing this content right now. Do you notice that this is on our website, on our coronavirus page? These community forums are on YouTube. We're taking snippets of them and putting them on Instagram. So I'm just encouraging you to really make sure that your website is filled with useful content, not just opportunities for people to buy.
Yeah, that's great.
There's one other thing that I want to say. We don't have time to get into it right now, but there's this whole idea of your digital footprint. Have you been listed correctly? What are you doing for search engine optimization? So how do you take outside traffic and make it easy for them to find you, not just use your current customer base as not just using it as another sales tool for your current customer base.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to do the hard marketing work that you had to do for your store. Same thing. Cherie's got a great question. She says, I'm doing Facebook Lives for 5 weeks, and when I open, I feel like there won't be anything new for a while. How are we going to interest the customer when they have seen so much of this on our Facebook Lives? It's a great question.
It's a great question.
But first of all, I started thinking about, even your Facebook Lives, you have to take the same merchandise and repackage it in different ways. So maybe one day, your show is about relaxing during the pandemic. And you pick certain items and you have a set of 50 items that you're doing on that live. Well, maybe the next day it's a Mother's Day special, and 20 of those same items just get repackaged into a different show. It's the same item, and different people are going to see it. They're going to see it differently because you're presenting it from a different point of view. And I think the same kind of thing is going to happen in your store. I think you're going to need to really re-merchandise.
Somebody said re-merchandise.
Yep.
See, I'm peeking over her shoulder. I'm not supposed
to be doing that. Jean, yes, you're going to have to re-merchandise. You're going to have to tell a different story with the merchandise inside the store than you've been telling on your Facebook Lives.
And I want to suggest something else, because we feel the exact same way. Our podcast, we're in 8 weeks into it now, and I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again. And in many ways, I am. But here's what I want to suggest to you. Just, we think the same thing about emails. Oh, they've all read this already. Well, if only 20% if you have a 20% open rate, it means that 80% of your customers have not read it already, which is why we're big proponents of resending the same email twice. But just because you're sick of it doesn't mean your customers are sick of it. Just because you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over again doesn't mean your customers are feeling that same thing. So, if you have a Facebook Live and 100 people are on it, and you've got a customer, well, here's an example. Right now, how many people are live right now?
Let's check it out.
119 people are live, and probably 400 or 500 people will watch this in the future. We have, over 15,000 people on our email list. So a small fraction of you, people in our community are actually getting the information. So I guess my point is, if you're getting sick of it, it doesn't mean that your customers are getting sick of it. It doesn't even mean that your customers have ever seen it before. But I think it's one of those tricks that we play in our minds.
Yeah, it is. It's tricky. Okay, good question here is about returns. Should we accept them? In Virginia, we aren't allowed to let people use fitting rooms. We have in our plan to allow people to return, but we're going to quarantine the product for 48 hours.
I believe you should accept them. Absolutely. I'll tell you what. So one of the things that, we are such strong believers in lifetime value of a customer. So if you don't accept a return for any reason whatsoever, even if the government doesn't let you, if you don't if you don't accept it, chances are that customer is going to go away. And always remember this: the value of the transaction can never exceed the lifetime value of a customer. So let's say it's a $100 purchase and you take it back and quarantine it, put it in the closet or put it in your back room until you know it's safe. And then when things reopen, you bring it out to the floor and sell it at half price. And let's just assume your markup is Keystone. You have lost the profit from that individual transaction, but kept the relationship with the customer.
Yep.
Lifetime value of a customer is more important than ever. It's just so important that you do everything to keep your customers close.
Yeah, I agree. And 48 hours on the quarantine for your product. I think that's great if it's soft goods, fabrics, papers, things like that. If it's hard surfaced product, I'd probably do 72 hours. They're saying that that's 72 hours is how long the virus can live on hard surfaces. So just keep that in mind as you're deciding how long to hold that product off the floor before you put it back on. And I don't think you need to discount it. Like maybe.
Well, no, I just use that as an example.
Yeah,
I don't think you need to discount it either.
Like maybe if it's worn clothing or whatever, maybe. But
In general, we are huge proponents of incredibly generous return policies because, again, don't protect the margin from the transaction. Protect the relationship with the customer.
Susan Glenn Wallace asks,
we knew this was coming.
any news on the summit? We are working really hard to make final decisions on what's going to happen, and we have a big meeting with our entire team on Thursday, and we will have all of the final information definitely by early next week for you guys. So that's the news.
Thank you for your patience with this. This has not been an easy thing for us.
We haven't known for a long time, what was going to happen with the venues, with our state, with any of this. So it's been day
Travel
by day.
from Canada.
Yeah, all these travel periods. So
Yeah.
so by the beginning of next week, you'll have all the info on what's going on with the summit this year. So thank you for your patience, and great question, Susan. Thanks. All right. People are saying about steaming clothing.
Yeah.
Nancy Norton says, how about shoes? How about dealing with those returns? I think UV light, I think has been something that people have said will work for shoes, and not like steaming. You can't steam shoes.
I was just going to share also with steaming. So Mark Weiss, I talked about Mark, the CEO of Management One, when we were on that community forum. He did a lot of research, and apparently Jiffy steamers are American made, and the temperature of the steam far exceeds the temperature needed to kill the virus. So that's a specific recommendation
for clothing.
Yeah, for clothing.
And I just know that there are experts out there that have these answers, and we're going to try to, like I said, we're going to try to pull these folks together, the real experts that work in this every single day, that's their job, and we're going to not just, your cousin's best friend's nephew on Facebook, which that he's an expert too, but who's going to take the chance? So we're gonna try to pull some of those folks together for you, and we'll do some special Facebook Lives on that.
So we have a couple more questions, but before we sort of we promised that this is an hour-long event, but before we move on to other questions, I do want to talk about our add-on masterclass.
Oh yeah, that's right. Good idea.
So we've created a brand new, short, tight, inexpensive, really, really high impact program that is really important to your future, in my opinion. It's called an add-on masterclass, and when I say short, you can watch the entire class, all of the videos in the class, in right around a half hour. About the time of a bad television show. It's a great investment. Normally it's going to be $97. Right now it's on sale for $47 until Friday. It's got a 30-day money back, unconditional money back guarantee. And traffic is down. And when traffic is down, really, really making sure that you do the absolute most with every customer who comes into the store is super, super important. And at $47, what you'll learn in the add-on masterclass, if you would apply it on your floor, if you use it with your employees. Let me show you the poster real quick. Most of you will be able to recoup your investment in the add-on masterclass in 1 day or 2 days. You'll get this great poster.
One day.
One day.
One sale. Even.
One sale.
I am not kidding you.
So, it's a whole process. What we did was we created a process to help you and your employees how to think about adding on, what to add on. What we found was that owners and managers would tell their employees, adding on is important, but they really didn't teach them how to do it. Yeah. And this is a process that we created.
And even when they taught them how to do it, the employees didn't know what to add on.
Yeah.
This is the kind of the genesis of this product came from one of our Platinum Mastermind Group members. She was frustrated with her people because they weren't adding on, even though she had told them about adding on, and they agreed that adding on was a good idea. and they still weren't doing it. And so she went and did a bunch of research. This was very smart. She went into her point of sale system, and she went for like the last month, and she looked up every single sale that only had one
transaction.
One item.
I'm sorry.
One item in the transaction. And she wanted to get some data. She wanted to do the research, find out what was going on. And so she started talking to her employees like, Bob, here's this transaction that you did for, she happened to have a baby store, and like they bought a pacifier. How come you didn't add on anything? And they were like, well, I don't know what to add on with a pacifier. So the point was that they weren't understanding that it was about maybe a baby that was in pain, or a baby that was teething, or, like they were just thinking like, well,
they were thinking item.
They were thinking about the item rather than about the situation. They weren't understanding what to add on. And so that's when we came up with this class and this poster. So we're super excited.
And it's awesome. And it's only $47 for the next 4 days. So, and you should make a point of getting it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And, and truly, two of our core values is everything that we sell works. And another one is everything is worth it. This works and it's worth it. And if you don't like it, just call the office. We'll give you your money back. So there's absolutely no risk. So just wanted to sort of nudge you that way. I think this is a really, really great program, and I think that all of you should have it.
Yeah,
so, okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
$47. Yeah. You can't afford not to have it.
All right. So what else do we have for questions?
Let's see. I'm going to put the link. I'll put the link to the add-on masterclass.
So I was looking over your shoulder, and I see that Art Burley's on.
Hi,
Art.
I know. I said so.
We were in a mastermind together a long time ago. So
absolutely. Yeah. Great to see you. All right, here. Let's see what other questions we have. I'm trying to see if Aubrey's put any other questions in here.
No, look at that. It looks like our timing's really good.
I know, really, really good. Let's see. I'll put the link for the add-on masterclass for you there.
Good thinking.
And you can keep talking.
Okay. So I hope this has been valuable to you. It really, really fills us with hope and encouragement when we watch what you're doing, when we talk to you in our various groups that we lead. I'm just going to come back. I keep coming back to it because I think it's so important that we keep repeating this, that we're moving through this, and that there is going to be another side. It may not be what we want it to be, but as long as we stay positive, as long as we keep working on ourselves and our businesses, as long as we keep trying to figure it out. Remember, we're entrepreneurs. We figure shit out. I mean, I've got such hope for all of us as independent brick and mortar retailers. You guys are absolutely awesome. When I see somebody's working 60 hours a week to build a website, in addition to doing her Facebook Lives and curbside pickups and deliveries and all of those things, it really, really shows me that, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, all of us are going to be better than ever. And that independent brick and mortar retailers are going to become the first choice. When your local customers want to shop, they're not going to say, where should I go? Should I go to Zappos? Should I go to the mall? Should I go to the department stores? They're going to say, where is my local store that I can support? Because I know that they're going to be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I'm giving you some.
You agree?
Love. I'm giving you.
You're giving me some love.
I'm giving you some love hearts right there because I thought that was so good.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you, dear.
All right, guys. We really enjoyed spending this hour with you. Hour and 10 minutes. So
hour and 10 minutes.
Thanks
Yes.
For sticking
and
with
I
us.
have another webinar that I'm doing at 3:00. So
we better hop off. All right. Well, join us tomorrow morning for the podcast, 9:30 in the morning. about 15 minutes long, or we'll see you next week on our community forum number 10.
Number 10. We
Number 10.
thought this might be a two episode deal. Number 10. So,
right.
yes, and if you haven't gotten that add-on master class yet, do it right now, okay? All right, everybody.
And hey, keep an eye out for info on that interviews with the cleaning experts. So.
Okay, good. All
All
right,
right,
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Love you guys. See you later. Bye.